What's up guys, my name is Tetos and in this video I will tell you how to play Elise like blank SKT-T1's jungler, featuring runes, masteries, champion combos, a game plan, tips for laning phase, team fights, key factors and much more. Stay tuned for that. As always, check the description for additional links and resources, and now let's get right into it. On Elise, always go Smite Flash, because Flash is important to Flash Cocoon, Flash Execute, Escape, Chase, anything. It's just the best summoner spell Spirit, and you can't jungle without Smite. On Elise, Blank is only using this single rune page, so rather offensive and aggressive, so no magic resist, instead he goes for the CDR per level. Other than that, it's very standard for attack speed, ability power and magic penetration. For Masteries on Elise, Blank always goes 12, 0 and 18. Notice how he picks up the Expose Weakness and the Natural Talent Mastery and Ferocity, as well as the Strength of the Ages Keystone in the Resolve tree. On Elise jungle, the skill order is RQWE, and if you want to find out why, I recommend heading over to the wiki page. Start off with the Hunter's Talisman, Refillable Potion and Warding Totem. If you need more HP over mana, you can get the Hunter's Machete too. Now, rushing the boots into Skirmisher's Saber with the Runic Echoes enchant, Sightstone, and the Sweeping Lens is key. Also pick up pink wards whenever you want to go for objectives or want to deward the map. Standard build includes Rylai's and Abyssal as well as the CDR boots, of course, and upgrading the trinket as fast as possible, so level 9. Situational items include Guarding Angel for closing out the game, Deathcap for raw damage, Void Staff when the enemy team is stacking MR. Liandry's Torment is a good item on Elise, but it's not your highest priority, although it synergizes well with the Rylai's Slow, for example, and the Magic Penetration is something that Elise always likes to build. However, Captain Boot Enchantment can work, as well as Alacrity for the general movement speed for your team. It's not bad, he gets it sometimes, Blank that is. The Tracker's Knife is an alternative to the Skirmisher's Saber. You lose the dueling potential, but you get another item slot, for example, and also the Sightstone charges, the Sightstone passive basically. Sorcerer Elixir is good for late game if you think the last team fight is approaching, and Swiftness can work against slow, heavy enemy teams. Elise is great at ganking and snowballing the map. I recommend going top or mid instead of bottom lane, because that lane is warded more frequently by the support and AD carry with the warding totem starts. Now, counter jungling after succeeding at a gank is important to steal more XP, gold and buffs from the enemy jungler. You should also look for ganks and dives with the Repellent Cocoon. On Elise, it's pretty easy to dive and drop the turret aggro with Repel when you need to, and landing cocoons is of course essential to pull off any gank. Warding and dewarding is the goal for any jungler, but especially in Elise it helps. That's why she also goes Sightstone most of the time. Pink wards, Oracle, Lens and anything like that to deward objectives and secure them with your strong percentage based damage. It helps against Dragon, Herald, Baron, anything, even against tanks that don't stack MR. Just a great way to shred these targets and do them quicker. The Spiderlings help as well with tanking sometimes. Now, don't forget to farm if you reach mid to late game, because some people simply stop. They fall behind in XP gold levels. It's not smart, don't do it. Lastly, for teamfighting, definitely save the Cocoon for following up CC if you can. If not, you also can look for initiations with that. However, oftentimes the tanks will just block and stay in the front. Just don't forget that you're pretty squishy late game, so don't go in recklessly. Let's talk about 4 Elise combos I'll include in this video for now. First off, we have the Flash Cocoon, which is rather easy to do. You just have to smash the F, probably, and the E key in human form. But, of course, landing the Cocoon is crucial, and don't forget that you cannot cast Cocoon first, followed by the Flash to make it launch from your new position, basically like the Lee Sin ultimate, for example. It doesn't work like that. Next up, the Flash Q in Spider form is like a double gap close execute combo. It's very useful if you want to finish the target off that is a little bit out of range. Also, it's very easy to do, just cast a Flash followed by the Q immediately to get the double gap close and damage. Now we have the jungling ability sequence basically, which is the W in human form, Q in human form, followed by switching to spider form with the R, then Q in spider form and W in spider form. It helps to get the most auto attack resets back in, because of course the Q in spider form and the W, they do reset your auto attack timer. Also you can get it in another Q because of the low cooldown probably if you don't use Smite for a camp. If a minion would block your Cocoon, you can use Smite mid-air, like in this Lee Sin combo. Sadly, I couldn't find a good video clip for Elise, but this works too, so I hope you get the idea what I'm talking about here. Let's take a look at your early game while your allies are busy laning. First off, starting with the Crux or Gromworks. The top camp on either side is usually the preferred one, because the bottom camp will be taken by support and AD carry, especially in higher elos. However, if it's not the case for your current game, you can definitely start bottom side as well. After that, just rotate to the first buff, and then You can either choose to do more camps, second buff immediately, or invade. Anything works really if you have the backup and the vision down. However, after that, it's important for every camper pretty much, after the first one, to know how to tank with your spiderlings. You have a maximum of 2 spiderlings until level 6, so cast 2 abilities in human forms, then you will get the 2 spiderlings when you switch to spider form, and then always pull back a little like Blank does it in this clip to just take less damage, abuse your range, abuse the pulling basically, the kiting a little bit to get less damage and stay more healthy in the jungle. Now I also included a full early game clear in this section of the video, so you can follow this route, but you don't have to, and you probably can't follow it every game. You have to adapt anyway if you get counter jungled or invaded, but I also wanted to show you that the tanking with the spiderlings works for every camp. It should be done for every camp. You should always keep in mind how many charges you can get. For example, before level 6 you can only get 2 spiderlings to tank for you. You can't cast more spells for more spiderlings, so don't waste your mana and spells. And basically you also want to keep pulling back a little bit so the jungle camps actually aggro your spiderlings. Otherwise you would do more damage, of course, if they survive longer, but you take more damage as well. It's pretty risky, especially if you're squishy on Elise in the early game. Pulling ganks off is dependent mostly on the ability to gap close with the E and hitting the cocoon, of course. Sample bottom lane gank can look something like this when you initiate actually the first gap closing with the E. Also keep in mind, if you do that, you can't tank the turret for long, because you can't, of course, drop the aggro with repel. However, diving in general is not that hard on Elise. You just can go in first, and then if you take too much damage, dodge a turret shot with the repel as in this clip. Your support or AD carrier or whoever you're ganking for can take the aggro then, and you can get away safely. Snowballing mid or top early with the lack of wards can really help snowball games a lot, so keep in mind that you can also do that even if the enemy has warded, for example. Counter jungling can be a great way to get ahead in the game as Elise, but you have to keep in mind that you need the necessary vision, so wards and dewarding the map can help. Also keep an eye on the minimap because you don't want to get collapsed on. Always look at who's missing from their lanes. Lane ganks on Elise aren't super effective, so I recommend ganking the lanes that don't have escape spells, also bonus points if their flash is down. I'll mention Elise's squishiness multiple times in this video because with this build order, basically, with this item build, you are not super tanky, especially lacking in armor, especially lacking a bit of MR because you use the scaling cooldown reduction glyphs. It just shows in 1v1s and 2v2s that you're not a super god at dueling and fighting. You are better off standing back, hitting the cocoons, and then following up with the damage, dodging a lot with your repel ability as well. Can also lead to some very silly initiations, like here you can see where he even gives up a free kill for no reason whatsoever. Let's look at some teamfighting clips now, where the first one is played quite well by Blank. Now you can see that he gets sadly caught a little bit at the start of the fight, or at the early stage of the fight, by some CC, by some damage. He has to dodge the damage with repel and then flash to avoid dying, and it just shows that actually flash is pretty important in teamfights for Elise, so if you use your flash cocoon, then you have to play more safe. Also, the cocoon works well with following up skill shots for your allies. However, it works the other way around too. If someone lands a CC ability, you can follow up with your cocoon to make a CC chain. Now, if you don't play the teamfights that well, if you overestimate your tankiness or underestimate your squishiness, basically, it can look something like this, where you get caught immediately without using repel, without doing anything in a fight, basically. It just looks very bad, especially in higher elos, even though it shouldn't be happening, of course. When you're behind, the squishiness is basically amplified by your lack of items, so you have to keep that in mind and play more safe, or you will probably lose more teamfights and games. Now finally for some key factors and tips when playing the champion. First off, some ability tips you might or might not know. With the spider form Q, you can use it of course to gap close and do some damage, but also to escape, like with the Alistair headbutt. If you cast it on a minion like this, you can get some distance between yourself and the enemy. It works very well to escape in some cases. Now for the Scuttle Crab, the cocoon will reduce its resistances, and with the percentage based damage it's very easy to kill, so keep that in mind. Get the free golden experience whenever possible. The repel ability has some hidden usages some people might not know. For example, you can use it to jump towards two. If for example Lee Sin is fighting you and he's hopping the wall, it works well to chase him. Now repel, of course, it also is a great ability to outplay the enemy, escape sticky situations like this one, or just use it as a double super long range gap closer. Playing champions like Elise or Lee Sin in the jungle, they have a dark side as well. If you're not super farmed and squishy as hell in the early game, sometimes it can just happen that you just overextend way too hard, like in this clip. It doesn't sometimes even cost you your own life, but also the one of your teammates, because they got baited kind of by you into the fight. So don't do that and be aware of these issues. Everyone chases too far in some situations, some people less frequently, but for Elise it means without the ultimate, you don't have an ultimate, you should be careful about your lack of damage, which can be apparent in some situations like this one. Over-aggression is also tied sometimes to lack of wards and vision basically. If you have Sidestone and the Oracle Lens, of course, you need to put those wards down, otherwise it can look something like this, where you get just caught out of position and just throw a basically even game. To counteract these scenarios, use your Sidestone charges frequently whenever possible to help your support ward the map, and also stock up on pink wards, upgrade your sweeping lens as early as possible at level 9 to deward the map. It's as important as warding it, because you want to improve or increase the fog of war for the enemy team, of course, as much as possible. Now, counter jungling is a very delicate topic. It can work, however, if you get caught, if you don't have the wards, if you see the enemies are collapsing on you and your allies are not backing you up, it's just probably on your side, not on the allies' side, because you need to keep vision of the map. However, counter jungling works quite well if you get a gank off, a successful one at that. Then you definitely have the numbers advantage, the risk is reduced quite significantly, and you can start the counter jungling. What should you do if you get counter jungled, you ask? Well, there is one recipe that works quite well. First off, it's warding. You need the vision to avoid dying for nothing. In this case, he's playing against Kindred, who is played by Rush, but it just shows that he gets out here safely without using flash. You can and should track the enemy jungler's movement this way, and then if he doesn't have red buff, you can go to his red buff, of course, and take the camp. Also, if he's top lane, of course, you can't gank, you can't help there, you can counter gank. Maybe you can gank another lane. You can take more camps that way and stay ahead, instead of just, for example, giving up the kill early when you don't have the wards in the first place, and then falling behind when he takes every single camp. Afterwards, when you respawn, you can't take his camps because he's taking them, so yeah, it's just a bad scenario. When you're jungling, it's important to look at the minimap at all times, because you need to stop jungling when the lanes are in trouble, for example, and you're nearby. Because I see so many people who just stay in the jungle, they just finish their camps no matter what, their people are dying left and right, and you can, if you stop immediately and in time basically, you can, for example, turn some things around, get some return kills, and defend towers, stuff like that. It really helps to avoid the enemy from, or prevent the enemy from snowballing. Other than that, timing is so important. 1 second even or less can really mean a difference and make a difference, and it just shows here, for example, counter ganking doesn't work. E-success rate is very important for team fights, for dueling, for anything. When you miss it, it just means trouble not only for you but for your team as well. Flashing and then using the cocoon, of course, and missing it is just super painful to watch and experience yourself. Now about the objective clearing from Elise's strong percentage-based damage spells. Dragon works quite nicely, however you can't let the Spiderlings tank solely, because you will take some damage as well. For Rift Herald, however, if you do it correctly, you can loop around and then get the true damage from the eye while the Spiderlings are tanking, avoiding the damage and getting a very fast and easy clear, which not many other junglers can do actually. For Baron, you can also abuse your percentage-based damage abilities to nuke it quickly. However, you can really solo it, of course, because Spiderlings will die too quickly. But it just shows that you can do it in around 10 to 15 seconds with some help, and it can be a nice play you can pull off when the enemy jungler, for example, or 1 to 2 people or 2 to 3 people are dead. Take this final tip with you before you leave. I want to highlight how some people, or actually many people probably, stop farming on jungle. Their CS drops radically in the mid to late game. You should not do that. If you can, if you find the time, if you don't have the group, for example, for a team fight or have a free ganking opportunity, go in the jungle, get the free golden experience to stay ahead. We're almost done, guys, but please, as an any champion who has a couple of combos or many combos, it is important to be able to pull these off in high pressure situations, so please practice them in custom games if you need to. It will increase your win rate, I guarantee it.
Welcome to the end screen, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, thanks for liking and sharing this video. On the right hand side you can see links to the previous Play Like a Pro episode. Let Tetos know what he should do next. And as always, until next time, and I'm here for you. My name is Brom. Bye bye.
Okay, you guys heard it. Until next time. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.